Welcome to the War Room. I'm your co-host, Roger Stone. Joining me shortly will be my colleague, Rob Dew, sitting in for Owen Schroyer. Last week, we learned some of the most extraordinary things in the entire time that I've been involved in American politics. We now know definitively that the Obama administration was actively involved in running guns to ISIS. We also know that the Obama administration, in order to preserve their secret Iranian nuclear deal, was protecting Iranian drug running operations where they were actually importing cocaine to the United States. Now, there is no statute of limitations on the crime of treason. And in both cases, I believe these activities are treasonous. Which leads us to the question of what Jeff Sessions is doing at the Justice Department and what our Attorney General is going to do about these extraordinary, indeed shocking crimes by the Obama administration. In the coming segment, we're going to be taking your calls, and that number is 1-888-201-2244. Again, 1-888-201-2244. You see, we value the two-way dialogue here at InfoWars. Now's not a bad time also to remind you that Alex Jones has extended the New Year's specials at the InfoWars store. Now, as I've said many times here, both on the Alex Jones Show and at the War Room, we don't have any secret right-wing billionaires standing in the wings writing huge checks to augment and supplement what we do here at InfoWars. We have to depend on you, the individual Info Warriors. And that's why it's vitally important that you go to the InfoWars store now and take a look at some of these extraordinary specials that Alex Jones has extended to the end of the year. I want to bring your attention particularly to a new product, Alpha Power, which is now at 50% off. Now, Alpha Power, to me, is the best fusing of the old and the new. This is a brand new vitality formula that is designed to help boost your physical, athletic performance and your energy levels. And the scientists who work closely with Alex Jones have fused modern ingredients like niacin, like zinc, with some of the oldest Chinese herbs, such as horny goatweed, also known as epimedium. And what you get is a formula that is virtually guaranteed to work synergistically to boost your athletic performance and your energy levels. I have now tried the Alpha formula, which I picked up when I was in Austin last week, and I must tell you, this is the very best of the best. And if we can pan to the site, we can show you where you order it at the Infowars.com store. And today, this extraordinary new product is 50% off. So I urge you to help yourself, help us pay for the expansion here at the War Room by ordering Alpha Power and the other extraordinary products that you can get now online at the InfoWars store. We are extending all of the Christmas specials and many of the special prices to the end of the year so that you can take advantage of these extraordinary savings and we can get your revenues to pay for the expansion that Alex Jones has mapped out here at InfoWars. When I was in Austin recently, I toured the new state-of-the-art studio that's being built there. Folks, our reach and our capability will be greater than ever before. But we can't do it without your support. And the best way to support us, not only with your phone calls, not only by reposting your favorite links from the Alex Jones Show or from The Real News with David Knight in the morning or from the War Room, But the best way you can support us is by going to the InfoWars store now and taking advantage of some of these extraordinary prices. You're talking about deep, deep discounts on the very best products that we offer here at InfoWars. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my personal favorite, Brain Force Plus at 50% off. An extraordinary product that I find gives me both physical and, more importantly, mental clarity and mental energy. So for those very long days that we spend out there fighting the deep state. So folks, take advantage of these extraordinary deep discounts now and help us. Alex Jones calls this the 360 win. It's win, win, win. You win by getting the very best all-natural products, and we win by getting your support to fund the extraordinary expansion that we have here at InfoWars. Last week, I gave an interview, it was Friday, for C-SPAN for their Newsmakers program. And I laid out there what I reiterate here today. Just because the president is on a political high now, do not think that the deep state quislings inside both parties don't intend to take down this president one way or another. Since the inquiry by Robert Mueller has been thoroughly discredited in the last several weeks, should Mueller shoot and miss, I have no doubt whatsoever that they will try a 25th Amendment takedown. Now, let me explain to you how that works. In order to trigger a 25th Amendment removal of the president, you would need a majority of the cabinet plus the vice president. They would declare the president non compos mentis, no longer able to discharge his duties. Unthinkable, you say? Well, not really. Unfortunately, there are some in the Trump cabinet, some, I stress, who cannot be trusted, who are not loyal to this president and his agenda. And they are resolved to remove this president by any means necessary. So do not underestimate the deep enmity of the deep state and the resolve of the politics as usual crowd in both parties to try to end the reform agenda of our great president. This will be refired again next year. You'll notice that the Don Lemons and the Joe Scarboroughs and the Senator Richard Corkers and Robert Corker and others continue to say, oh, the president's crazy, the president's insane, the president's nuts. No, he isn't. He is just as sharp as a tack. He is the same man I have known for 40 years. But watch for the uptick in this kind of commentary after the first of the year, when the deep staters move to Plan B, a 25th Amendment strategy. You heard it here first on InfoWars. It's just as true today as it was 3 weeks ago. Just because the president has the wind now to his back with a historic tax cut does not mean that the deep staters will give up in their resolve to undo the results of the last election. If I sound like Paul Revere here, I'm doing it on purpose. If I'm trying to strike a warning, yes, that is the goal. The deep state will never get over the president's historic upset election. I'm Roger Stone. You're at the War Room. My colleague Rob Dew will be joining me shortly, and we'll be right back. Again, your phone calls to 1-888-201-2244. 1-888-201-2244, and I'll be right back with the War Room.
Well, the end of 2017 is almost upon us. Trump's first almost full year in office. He took office on January 20th of this year. And from time to time, I'll be reading off of this list. By the way, you're watching the War Room. From the Washington Examiner, Year 1 list, 81 major Trump achievements, 11 Obama legacy items repealed. And we'll go through that as definitely for the rest of the hour. We're also going to be taking your calls, 888-201-2244. We got Dennis, Nielsen, and Elaine, or Alan. All right. And we're going to be going over all kinds of stuff. They're saying from RT that 2017 is the year AI took over. And that is the quote, has been dubbed the year of AI by significant AI-based improvements in speed, accuracy, prompting earnest concerns that a robot apocalypse could one day be in the cards. Tech billionaire and renowned theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk have both talked about how AI could wipe out humanity. And we haven't seen any legislation on that. So it'll be interesting to see what 2018 brings. I do want to get into later on in the show some interesting weather news. Looks like we're in the store for a mini ice age. It's already happening in some parts of the country. 5 feet of snow in Erie, minus 30 plus temperatures in Minnesota. And there's more to come, but the global warming alarmists would have you thinking differently because they don't want to look at the main driver of our climate, and that is the sun. Roger, do you want to get into some of these 81 major Trump achievements, or do you want to go right to the callers?
Let's go through a couple of the achievements, Rob, because
right.
It really is extraordinary when you consider the opposition that the president has faced from not only the leadership of both parties, but from the mainstream media, that he's been able to achieve as much as he has with this implacable opposition is really extraordinary. It's historic.
It is. He's in a foxhole with people that don't like him and don't want him. He's fighting an enemy that wants to kill him. And meanwhile, the media is covering it, basically saying Trump is the bad guy and everybody should be jumping in the foxhole to bayonet him. But here we go. Jobs and economy. There's 12 categories here, 81 wins as cited by the White House. Passage of the tax reform bill providing $5.5 billion in cuts and repealing the Obamacare mandate, which if you listen to people like Bernie Sanders, who we have a clip of that. This is an article from Jamie White. Bernie Sanders admits Trump tax cuts for 91% of the middle class a very good thing. And then he goes on to bitch about among other things, saying 13 million people are going to lose their health insurance. No, they're going to stop paying for overpriced health insurance. That's where he's wrong, okay? Because they're being forced to give their money to insurance companies. It has nothing to do with health care. It's about health insurance. Obamacare is nothing but a health insurance bailout, and that's what he doesn't want to admit. Next one, increase of GDP above 3%. Creation of 1.7 million new jobs, cutting unemployment to 4.1%. I don't know if I agree with that unemployment number. We've been saying that the unemployment number is a lot higher. It's just the way they report it. But Trump is just going by the way they report. The jobs people report the news or report those numbers. And saw the Dow Jones reach record highs. Any of those you want to comment on, Roger?
No, it's really extraordinary. The importance of getting the tax rate below that of Mexico, that of Canada, that of China, that of Japan was crucial. Now, it's unfortunate that the president's tax cut proposal did get larded up with some of these Christmas tree provisions for Wall Street. And I happen to know for an absolute fact that the president tried valiantly to end the carried interest benefits for hedge fund operators at the last minute, was not able to pull this off, but did stage a valiant effort to do so. I really think that economists like Larry Kudlow from CNBC and Steve Moore from the Heritage Foundation are absolutely right. This tax cut could turbocharge the economy, and you could see some of the greatest peacetime expansion in our history. This would make the president unbeatable if he chooses to run again in 2020. And of course, we will be begging him to do so. The real concern I have, though, is whether those congressional Republicans, having now larded up the tax cut with some of the provisions that they favored for their Wall Street buddies, will now betray the president because they no longer need him. This is a very legitimate concern and something we at InfoWars will be watching and reporting on very carefully.
Yeah, and I want to go to part of Bernie's interview, but we'll go to it next segment, where he says, oh, well, these tax cuts are only for 10 years, and then they're going to start going back up, and they're going to pay more taxes. We could be in a whole different ballgame in 10 years, Bernie. At least he got tax cuts through, and this is something that the American people need, and this is something the American people have been asking for. But he doesn't want to talk about that. He just wants to look at the negative, and then the whole fable about 13 million people losing their insurance. But let's go to a caller. Let's go to Dennis in Canada, Ontario, Canada, wants to talk about signs of war with North Korea, which will be a big topic of today's show.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, doing great.
Hey, before I start off talking about North and South Korea, I wanted to talk about Roger Stone's book. Roger Stone, as you know, you released your book, was it about a year ago, Making of the President 2016?
It's about right, yes.
About a year now? Yeah.
About a year ago, yes.
To whoever hasn't gotten it, and I would have recommended it as a Christmas gift, it's absolutely great. I got it about a year ago, and I just want to remind people that if you want to support the InfoWar, this is actually a really nice book, Roger, I got to say. And I've tried to call you before, but I never get the chance to because of school and all that. But I really wanted to comment on your book first. Like, a lot of good content, talks about the 2000 Trump candidacy. And it also has some very nice photographs that you wouldn't otherwise see, some exclusive photographs. And I wanted to just say, great book, and highly recommend it to anyone. Anyways, I wanted to talk about...
That's very kind. I appreciate that very much. I'm very proud of this book because I put it together between the Republican National Convention in Cleveland and Election Day. You can get it today at the InfoWars store at a great price. It's $19.95. And as I said about a week ago, if they succeed in taking down our president through some illegitimate coup d'etat, I would be forced to write a book entitled The Unmaking of the President. But that is not my plan. That is not my intention. In fact, I think the president will outwit the deep staters that seek to end his presidency. But I appreciate your strong endorsement of the book, and I urge folks who want the inside story about how Donald Trump pulled off the greatest upset in American political history to go to the InfoWars site now and get your copy of The Making of the President 2016.
All right, Dennis, you got 30 seconds. I gotta jump in here before we go to break. Go ahead. What's your question about North Korea?
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about the possibilities of chemical weapons, and if you think that if there is some sort of strike against North Korea, whether it'll be something that will really follow through, or if North Korea will just be used as a pawn in reemergence, as something that could be used as a threat like decades later.
Well, we will get to that answer right after this break. You're watching The War Room, Infowars.com.
Welcome back. Yes, you're in the right place. This is Freedom Command Central, The War Room. Sitting in for my colleague Owen Schroyer is my other colleague, Rob Dew. And Rob, let's go to that question on North Korea. You're up.
Okay, well, to answer the caller's question, that's Dennis in Canada, wanted to talk about whether North Korea is going to use chemical weapons. This just came out today from USA Today. Anthrax antibodies and defector raise fears North Korea is developing chemical weapons. They've already mentioned they want to launch a missile with anthrax in it, and a lot of people thought that was just talk. But now we have the article of that. I guess they've done tests on the latest defector running across the demilitarized zone, the DMZ, and he has anthrax antibodies in his system. So that is definitely leading to fears that they might use anthrax. Now, what I think this might do, this could also be another yellow cake scenario too, saying he has these to further go after North Korea and ratchet up the sanctions, which it appears China is breaking the sanctions by selling oil to North Korea, even though they're not supposed to be. Now, how would a fight look between North Korea and the United States? It would also be South Korea. We have the overwhelming advantage in air superiority, naval power, troop technology. I don't think it would be a long war. South Korea, I think, is ready for any type of war, and I think their people know what to do in terms of sheltering, and they've built enough stuff to withstand a barrage. Not a nuclear barrage, but any sort of, I guess, tactical barrage that would come out that wouldn't be nuclear. I'm saying conventional weapons. I don't really talk about the military that much. But going through this, looking at this chemical weapons thing, I think this by having these tests, this does open up the U.S. and the international community to go after North Korea with another round of sanctions. Or maybe this could be a spot where they go, hey, let's talk this out. But everyone seems to think before March 20th, there's going to be a war. We have a Chinese general who said it, General Wang Gongwang, said the war on the Korean Peninsula might break out between any time now and March next year. So that's 2018. We also have an author who was told, this is from Paul Joseph Watson's article, a director of CIA told me it's a war with North Korea within 12 weeks. That puts it back in that March timeframe. Now, the Olympics are being held in South Korea this year, the Winter Olympics. But those will be done. That's about 3 weeks. Those are going to be done sometime in February. So that does square up with the athletes are out of the way. Things could happen, and if North Korea does one false move, that's it for them. Incidentally, EU planning their own Olympic team to weaken national pride. So you could have a athlete, well, not an athlete from the UK being in the EU because they've opted out of the EU, but say Italy and Spain could put athletes on the EU, and I think you might see the EU as being like an all-star team of European athletes, where they're going to go so they can have a better chance of winning. Or you'll see an athlete who doesn't make it in their country use that as an end around. Now, that's, of course, digressing. A Marine Corps general warned on Thursday, this is back on December 23rd, that the troops stationed in Norway should be prepared for a coming war. I hope I'm wrong, but there's a war coming. That's a quote General Robert Neller told them.
Well, Rob, I think this speaks in a certain sense to the character of Donald Trump. This guy is not Barack Obama. Donald Trump is not a man who will draw a line in the sand and watch our adversaries cross it. He is not made of sugar candy. This is the single toughest human being that perhaps I've ever met. Now, I'm speaking as someone who worked for Richard Nixon, worked for Ronald Reagan, worked for Senator Bob Dole, all of whom I consider to be great Americans. But Donald Trump is a very tough individual, and he has an extraordinary, resolve. And he's not going to be pushed around by this little punk in North Korea. Now, I know that the striped pants set in Foggy Bottom is urging him to play out the diplomacy and so on, and he'll do so. But I'd say this. One more nuclear test by the North Koreans, and I think his patience will have been exhausted. And he will do something historic, something that hasn't been done since perhaps the days of President Harry Truman. But our adversaries need to understand this is no Barack Obama we're talking about. This is not somebody who is afraid to utilize American power. And therefore, I really think the North Koreans are pushing their luck.
I definitely think they're pushing their luck. And I don't want to see a war because that people are going to die in that, and that's going to be real lives lost all across the board. North Koreans, South Koreans, American lives. It's not going to be a cakewalk, even though we do have an overwhelming superiority against North Korea. But anything could happen that would bring China or Russia into this, and that would not be good. That could, everybody's saying, that would be a start of World War III, starting something in North Korea. So I don't want to see that. I want to play a little bit of this clip, Roger, of Bernie Sanders bitching about the tax cuts, just trying to find any way. Notice how he doesn't have a tax plan, though. Bernie Sanders' tax plan is just increasing taxes on everybody and pretending it's a middle-class tax cut when he would just increase the richest taxes and but he thinks the rich is anybody making over $100,000 a year. So that would be Bernie Sanders' tax cut plan, and free college for all, so college becomes worthless, and then free Medicaid for everybody who wants it, just opening up the floodgates for the entitlement class. But here's Bernie Sanders bitching about the Trump's tax cut on CNN.
I understand you're not a fan of the tax bill. You don't like the large corporate tax cut, and you're not happy with the tax cuts for the wealthy. But according to the Tax Policy Center, next year, 91% of middle-income Americans will receive a tax cut. Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, it is a very good thing, and that's why we should have made the tax breaks for the middle class permanent. But what the Republicans did is made the tax breaks for corporations permanent the tax breaks for the middle class temporary, and according to the Tax Policy Center, that same organization, at the end of 10 years, 83% of the benefits go to the top 1%, 60% of the benefits go to the top 1/10 of 1%. Meanwhile, at the end of 10 years, well over 80 million Americans will be paying more in taxes. 13 million Americans, as a result of this legislation, are going to lose their health insurance. Healthcare premiums are going up. We got a $1.4 trillion
lose their health
deficit
insurance
as a result of this bill. And Paul Ryan is going around saying, oh, we have to offset that deficit by cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. To answer your questions.
Stop for a second. I love how Bernie Sanders is finally concerned about the deficit. Now it becomes a big deal. It wasn't a big deal when we were going to have Obamacare giving a bailout to the insurance companies. It wasn't a big deal then because we had to make people buy health insurance, and which has nothing to do with health care. I wonder if people out there who've had their health insurance tried to use it. Have you ever tried to use your health insurance? It doesn't work very well. It's not designed to work very well. It's designed to give you as little help as you possibly can by making you pay the most that you possibly can. I've survived using health sharing, and I encourage people to look into that. You can look into health sharing accounts. I'm with Liberty Health Share, and we get back about 90% of the money we spend out in healthcare, and you're never going to find an insurance plan that's going to get you anything remotely close to that. Roger, you have anything you want to say to Bernie Sanders before we go to break?
Yeah, this is essentially the same argument that Nancy Pelosi was forwarding. In other words, we're concerned about the lack of tax relief 10 years from now. Yeah. Does anyone in their right mind think that the Congress won't extend middle-class tax relief after 10 years of its success? It's a ludicrous argument. The Democrats know they have lost, and that this tax cut by the president's going to turbocharge the economy, and you're about to have a boom like the country has never seen. Let's call it the Trump boom.
And we'll be right back after this. Roger Stone, Rob Dew. We'll go back to more of your calls. You're watching The War Room, Infowars.com/show.
Yes. So just to follow up on the Mueller issue, you just wrote in the Daily Caller that my advice to the president is he must completely disempower and dismantle Mueller's fraudulent rogue prosecution gang. So to be clear, first, have you spoken to the president about this, and have you specifically told him he should fire Mueller?
Well, I don't believe that that he should fire Mueller, so I would not have told him that, and I haven't told him that. I believe that the president should ignore the incorrect advice of his attorneys, who appear to have told him that he doesn't have the authority to issue directives to the Attorney General of the United States. The Department of Justice is an extension of the executive branch. The president should order the Attorney General, Mr. Sessions, to appoint a special counselor in the matter of Uranium One. That would necessarily put Mr. Mueller, Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, and even Mr. Rosenstein under immediate federal investigation. And I cannot see how they could proceed in their current jobs under that circumstance.
All right, well, before we get to the Uranium One, though, I'm a little confused because you wrote he should completely disempower and dismantle Mueller's gang, but but now you're saying he shouldn't fire him. So how does he completely disempower and dismantle the prosecution team?
By the appointment of a special prosecutor in Uranium One. My article goes on with the etymology of that scandal. I think it would be impossible for Mueller to proceed. Therefore, I think he would be checkmated, and therefore it would have that effect. There you have a bite of my interview with C-SPAN. You can read my entire piece at the InfoWars website, where I go through the entire history of Uranium One. Rob, I think this is crucially important. The Democrats are pursuing a briar patch strategy. They're trying to induce the president to fire Mueller so they can whip up a hysteria that Mueller has been fired to cover up the president's crimes and collusion with Russia. We could have the exact same effect by checkmating Mueller through the appointment of a special counsel on the question of Uranium One. It would have the effect of checkmating Mueller's inquiry and putting the exact 4 individuals who are currently twisting the president's tail under immediate federal investigation. I'm hopeful that the president will not do something impulsive and hand the Democrats the upper hand, which they have lost in the entire Russian collusion delusion investigation.
Yeah, and you have Adam Schiff running around still like saying, oh, there's Russia, like literally like the sky is falling like Chicken Little, and he's offered no evidence. He admits it every time he goes on TV. Well, I don't have any evidence, but I know it's there. I know it's there somewhere. His Pissgate dossier, which Trump came out and lambasted over the Christmas holiday. I got to find that because he tore into it. Yeah, it's a Daily Mail article. Trump tears into Golden Shower dossier, calling it a crooked Hillary pile of garbage and FBI tainted, which brought out all the criminals in the FBI, who was the Attorney General, the gun runner. I forget his name. He wanted to brainwash everybody into
Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder. Wanted to brainwash everybody into thinking different about the Second Amendment. Comes out, oh, how dare you talk about McCabe and these honorable men who served. These are lying, cheating scumbags. I mean, when you look at overall, the FBI literally runs around, creates fake terror plots, gets stupid people to get involved into them. And I'm not saying all FBI agents are like this. A lot of them do really good work. But there's a division, probably led by people like McCabe and Holder, that run around. They're helping run guns to Mexico. They're probably helping deal drugs. And they're also running around getting idiots involved in these so-called terror plots so they could go, we jumped in and saved the day, when they really haven't done much of anything.
No, it's extraordinary what we now know. So they created this fake dossier, then they used the fake dossier to rationalize going to the FISA court to rationalize the surveillance of the president of the United States, or at that point, the Republican candidate for president. In other words, using the federal government to conduct political espionage. This is 10 times worse than anything that happened in Watergate, and somebody needs to be prosecuted for it. There's so many grimy fingers on this phony dossier. You have Paul Singer, the Republican hedge fund operator who was revealed here at InfoWars as the first funder of this illicit project. And then once it didn't stop Trump from the Republican nomination, Hillary Clinton, the Democratic National Committee pick up the funding. Yet the Obama Justice Department is using something they know to be fraudulent as a rationale for wholesale spying on the Republican candidate for president. Rob, where is the outrage by the mainstream media? It seems to, I'm not hearing it. Are you hearing it?
They're all for it. They're all for it. Trump wasn't their man. They wanted Hillary Clinton. And so we're going to have at least 2 more years of this insanity, I think, before they finally calm down. We have a caller from Venezuela I think we need to go to. This is Alan in Venezuela. Wants to talk about what's going on. This is a boots on the ground report of what's going on in his country. Alan, are you there?
Yes, sir. How are you? Thank you so much for taking my call. Great program, sure. Awesome products. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So what's going on in Venezuela right now?
Well, what's going on in Venezuela is I think United States, not the United States, all the American people who love Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, leftist, socialists, pedestra lovers, and Bernie Sanders lovers, they need to see in the reflection of what happened in Venezuela, because we have 18 years of socialism that becomes a dictatorship by the leftists and all the people who hate democracy. And when you see the power in Donald Trump that actually I vote for, and I don't feel ashamed being Hispanic who loves Donald Trump and vote for him, I believe that American people take the best decision ever in the history for this beautiful America. This country is the best #1 country in the world, no doubt about it. And leftists and socialists, or people who think they believe in that kind of ridiculous political ways, they need to understand that it's a way of destruction to any country. And Venezuela is a lot of starvation, killing, homicide, is anarchy. Totally anarchy. And people need to understand that having Donald Trump in power right now, after so many deplorables with Barack Obama and the Clintons and the Bushes, we have the best opportunity in history to put America back where it belongs. And I pray, my prayer every day for Donald Trump and his team and all the political around, that God humiliate all the enemies of Donald Trump and bless those who pray and do the right as he is doing for America.
Well, I think that is going to happen, and you just gave me a great idea. I think we need a new migration plan. We need to get these Antifas and everybody that hates this country so much, and we migrate them down to Venezuela, and then we'll do one-for-one trade. Hey, any Venezuelans want to come up to America? You want to experience capitalism and all of its glory? Come on in, and we do a one-for-one trade, and we see who ends up with a better country. That's
going to be awesome. I tell you, I became a citizen 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I paid the price, 13-year process, $13,000-something spent on lawyers. And do the right thing the right way is the way. It's not any other way. Other way is anarchy, and we don't need that anymore in this country.
That's what I hear from people who've gone through the process. And I talk to a lot of people at these rallies, these Trump rallies we used to go to during the campaign. And they say, you know, I'm from Colombia. I'm from Venezuela. I'm from El Salvador. We did it the right way. It cost money, but you know what? I'm an American, and I'm proud to be an American, and I want Donald Trump to win. Thanks for calling, Alan. Appreciate it. Let's go to Nelson in Georgia, and wants to talk about the MAGA project. Nelson, are you the guy that called in earlier about the indoor gardens a couple weeks ago?
I am.
Okay.
The guy. How you doing, Rob?
Yeah. So what's going on?
Well, I wanted to thank you. You brought a lot of people to my site, and I just... I'm friends with Joy Villa on Facebook, and she likes the project. And I just want to reiterate that the only way we're going to save our communities is if we go back the way we were in the 50s when we were all self-sustaining communities and we were healthy. This healthcare bill and insurance is a joke because we're being poisoned by our food and by the pharmaceutical industry. So, I mean, we're getting caught on both ends. They're charging us for poisoning us.
Right, exactly.
What we really need to do is get control of our food, and then with the state-of-the-art indoor farms, we can get a 1,000-acre yield out of 1 acre of land and guarantee the food 100%.
Yep.
You know, that's what we need.
Nelson, you need to shoot some video. So shoot me some video of what you're doing, where you're building these things, and we'll have you on for an hour to talk about it, because I totally agree with what you're doing. And I'll say this. Our problem in this country is not lack of health insurance, okay? It's lack of health care. We'll be right back. It's the War Room in 4. Here on the War Room, Roger Stone is going to be leaving us. He did double duty today, doing an hour of the Alex Jones Show, 4th hour, and then jumping on with me for the 1st hour of the War Room. Roger, any parting shots before you go?
Well, I just want me to comment quickly on our last caller. If you need any more graphic example that socialism doesn't work, look at what's going on in Venezuela today, or even Cuba. The other thing the caller was absolutely right about is that the presidency of Donald Trump is our last best chance to preserve not only our constitutional democracy, but the strength of the free world. Rob, it's always a great pleasure to be with you. You're a true pro, and I look forward to being back on the War Room tomorrow evening.
All right, we'll see you then.